Imagine standing on a battlefield where the fate of an entire land hangs in the balance. The air is thick with tension, the ground scarred from relentless clashes, and two great forces stand poised for the ultimate confrontation. This is where we left off, the First Battle of Moytura, a clash that would decide who held dominion over Ireland and set the stage for the struggles to come. In our last video, we explored the early inhabitants of Ireland, the Fomorians, the mysterious and chaotic Lords of Shadow, the ill-fated people of Kesser, and the resilient waves of settlers like the Partholonians, Nemedians, and Fir Bolg. We saw how each group shaped and reshaped Ireland, often leaving behind tragedy but also paving the way for something greater. Now, it's time to pick up where we left off. This chapter takes us into the heat of the epic battles that defined Irish mythology. If you missed the first two parts of this series, I'd highly recommend going back to watch it. It sets the stage for everything we'll be diving into today. The origins of the Tuatha Dé Danann, their mysterious arrival, and the challenges they faced. Now let's dive into the tale that changed Ireland forever. This is the story of the two battles of Moytura and the rise of the Milesians. With the failed attempts at negotiations, the looming confrontation between these two groups turned inevitable. What followed was the First Battle of Moytura, a clash that would determine who held dominion over Ireland and set the stage for the struggles to come. The Fir Bolg, led by their king Eochaid mac Éireach, were proud warriors. They had carved out a life on the island through hard work and resilience, and they saw the Tuatha Dé Danann as nothing more than invaders. Though they lacked the supernatural abilities and treasures of the Tuatha Dé Danann, the Fir Bolg were fierce in battle, armed with a deep connection to the land and an unyielding resolve to defend it. The Tuatha Dé Danann, on the other hand, approached the conflict with strategy and confidence. They were led by Nuada, a king of great wisdom and strength, wielding the legendary Sword of Light, one of the four sacred treasures they had brought from their ancient cities. While their warriors were skilled, it was their mastery of magic and their innovative strategies that gave them a distinct advantage. The battlefield, Moytura, was an open plain, chosen for its expanse that allowed both armies to showcase their might. As the two forces gathered, the tension in the air was palpable. The Fir Bolg, with their spears, shields, and axes, stood as a testament to raw martial power, while the Tuatha Dé Danann, adorned with their magical armaments, exuded an otherworldly presence. The battle began with a series of skirmishes, both sides testing each other's strength. The Fir Bolg fought with ferocity, their warriors clashing against the enchanted weapons of the Tuatha Dé Danann. The earth trembled under the weight of their combat as the cries of battle echoed across the plain. Among the Fir Bolg, Shreng, their greatest champion, stood out as a force to be reckoned with. He wielded his axe with devastating precision, cutting down any who dared to stand in his path. Nuada himself led the charge for the Tuatha Dé Danann, his enchanted sword blazing as it cleaved through enemy ranks. But even with his supernatural strength, Nuada was not immune to the chaos of battle. In a fateful encounter with Shreng, the Fir Bolg warrior struck a powerful blow, severing Nuada's arm at the shoulder. The injury was catastrophic. Among the Tuatha Dé Danann, it was law that a king must be physically whole, and Nuada's wound not only weakened their morale, but also cast doubt on their future leadership. Despite Nuada's grievous injury, the Tuatha Dé Danann refused to falter. Their druids worked tirelessly to maintain magical defenses, summoning illusions and protective spells to counter the unrelenting assault of the Fir Bolg. Their warriors, fueled by determination and loyalty to their king, rallied under the leadership of their other champions. Over the course of 4 grueling days, the battle raged on, both sides refusing to yield. The turning point came when the Tuatha Dé Danann combined their magic with their superior strategy. Using spells to disorient the Fir Bolg and disrupt their formations, they launched a decisive assault that broke their opponents' lines. The Fir Bolg, though courageous, could not withstand the overwhelming power of the Tuatha Dé Danann's combined forces. Their king, Eochaid mac Éireach, was slain, some say while leading a desperate charge, others in a final stand that cemented his legacy as a brave and honorable leader. With Eochaid's death, the Fir Bolg's resistance crumbled. But the Tuatha Dé Danann, despite their victory, did not celebrate without acknowledgement of the bravery shown by their enemies. In a gesture of respect, they allowed the remaining Fir Bolg to stay in Ireland, granting them the province of Connaught as their own. This act of mercy not only preserved the Fir Bolg's legacy, but also marked the Tuatha Dé Danann as rulers who understood the importance of balance and coexistence. Though victorious, the Tuatha Dé Danann paid a heavy price. Many of their warriors had fallen, and the loss of Nuada's arm created a leadership crisis that would cast a shadow over their newfound rule. With the dust settling over Moytura, the Tuatha Dé Danann stood victorious, though their triumph was far from complete. The battle had tested their strength and resilience, and while they had emerged as the rulers of Ireland, the scars left by the conflict were deep. Among the Tuatha Dé Danann, a king was required to be whole in body, and Nuada's dismemberment disqualified him from continuing as their ruler. This law, though rigid, was seen as necessary to ensure the strength and stability of their society. With their leader incapacitated, the Tuatha Dé Danann found themselves in uncharted territory. In the immediate aftermath of the battle, the healers and druids of the Tuatha Dé Danann worked tirelessly to save Nuada. Chief among them was unmatched, the god of healing, whose unparalleled skill was their best hope. Using magic and craftsmanship, unmatched forged a new arm for Nuada, made entirely of silver. This limb, not only functional, but exquisitely crafted, earned Nuada the name Ergetlim, or Silver Hand. While the silver arm restored Nuada's physical strength, it did not resolve the matter of his kingship. According to their laws, even an enchanted replacement was not enough to make him whole. As Nuada stepped down from the throne, the Tuatha Dé Danann turned their attention to the question of succession. It was a pivotal moment, one that could either solidify their new rule or unravel it. After much deliberation, they chose Bress, a young and charismatic figure who seemed to embody the qualities they needed. Frey's heritage made him a unique choice. He was the son of a Tuatha Dé Danann woman and a Fomorian father. At the time, this seemed like a promising bridge between two powerful lineages, offering the potential for unity and peace. For a time, Bress's reign appeared to fulfill that promise. Handsome, charming, and commanding, he carried himself with the grace of a king. But it wasn't long before cracks began to show. Bress lacked the generosity and wisdom that defined true leadership. His rule became synonymous with oppression and exploitation. He imposed heavy tributes on the Tuatha Dé Danann, funneling their resources to his Fomorian kin. Under his reign, a society that had once flourished under Nuada's guidance began to falter. The people grew resentful of Bress's harsh rule. He showed little regard for their traditions or well-being, and his actions alienated even his most loyal supporters. The contrast between his reign and Nuada's leadership became painfully clear, and the Tuatha Dé Danann began to yearn for the days of their former king. Bress, rather than uniting his people, drove a wedge between them, creating unrest that would soon boil over. Meanwhile, Nuada did not remain idle. Though he could no longer rule, he focused on his recovery and rehabilitation. The silver arm, while a marvel of craftsmanship, was a constant reminder of his limitations. But fate had more in store for Nuada. Miak and Ermid, the children of unmatched, took it upon themselves to craft a new arm for him, one made of flesh and bone. Through their combined skill and magic, they succeeded, fully restoring Nuada to his former self. With his physical wholeness restored, Nuada was once again eligible to lead. The return of Nuada marked a turning point for the Tuatha Dé Danann. His reinstatement as king was met with widespread celebration and relief. Bress, who had failed to win the loyalty of his people, was deposed. Humiliated and bitter, he fled to the Fomorians, seeking their aid to reclaim his throne. His departure, however, was far from the end of his influence. Bress's alliance with the Fomorians would ignite a new conflict, one that would dwarf even the First Battle of Moytura. The shadow of the Fomorians loomed large over Ireland as the Tuatha Dé Danann began to rebuild their society under the restored leadership of Nuada Getlam. Though they had secured victory over the Fir Bolg and weathered the misrule of Brez, the threat of a greater conflict was growing. Brez, now exiled and humiliated, sought refuge with his Fomorian kin, setting in motion a chain of events that would lead to one of the most legendary battles in Celtic and Irish mythology, the Second Battle of Moytura. Brez's flight to the Fomorians was more than an act of desperation. It was a calculated move. As the son of a Tuatha Dé Danann mother and a Fomorian father, Brez carried the blood of both worlds, making him a uniquely valuable figure. His Fomorian kin, led by powerful figures like Balor of the Evil Eye and unmatched Tuatha Dé Danann, saw in him an opportunity to assert their dominance over Ireland. Brez promised the Fomorians a path back to power, offering his intimate knowledge of the Tuatha Dé Danann's strengths and weaknesses. The Fomorians responded with ruthless efficiency. Under Balor's command, they began amassing an army unlike any Ireland had seen before. Balor himself was a terrifying figure, his single eye so deadly that its gaze could annihilate entire armies. It was said that the lid of his eye was so heavy that it required multiple men to lift it, and when opened, his gaze unleashed destruction on an unimaginable scale. Alongside Balor stood Indech, a warlord of immense strength and a host of monstrous warriors ready to crush the Tuatha Dé Danann. News of the Fomorian threat reached Nuada's court, and the Tuatha Dé Danann began preparing for the inevitable conflict. Their efforts were guided by a sense of urgency, for they understood the gravity of the challenge ahead. They strengthened their defenses, forged new weapons, and called upon their druids to weave protective spells. The 4 sacred treasures they had brought from their ancient cities, the Lia Fail, the Sword of Nuada, the Spear of Lugh, and the Cauldron of Dagda, were prepared for battle, each destined to play a role in the coming fight. Amid these preparations, a new figure emerged to lead the charge against the Fomorians, Lugh Glamfada, the grandson of Balor himself. Lugh was no ordinary warrior. His lineage made him both a Tuatha Dé Danann and a Fomorian, bridging the divide between these two opposing forces. But it was his extraordinary abilities that truly set him apart. Known as Samil Danak, or Master of All Crafts, Lugh excelled in every skill imaginable: warfare, strategy, craftsmanship, and magic. His arrival at Nuada's court was met with skepticism, but his undeniable talents quickly earned him a place among their ranks. It was prophesied that Lugh would play a pivotal role in defeating the Fomorians, and he soon took command of the Tuatha Dé Danann's forces. Under his leadership, they developed a strategy that combined their martial prowess, magical expertise, and the power of their sacred treasures. Lugh's confidence and vision inspired the Tuatha Dé Danann, rallying them for the battle to come. The Second Battle of Moytura unfolded on a scale far beyond the first. The Fomorian army, led by Balor and Indech, clashed with the Tuatha Dé Danann in a conflict that raged across the plains. The battlefield was a chaotic blend of steel, magic, and blood, as both sides unleashed their full might. Nuada, restored as king, fought at the forefront, wielding his enchanted sword with devastating precision. The warriors of the Tuatha Dé Danann displayed incredible bravery, using their superior tactics and magical artifacts to counter the overwhelming numbers of the Fomorians. The Spear of Lugh struck down foes with unerring accuracy, while the Cauldron of Dagda ensured that no warrior went hungry or weak during the fight. The Lia Fail, though not a weapon, stood as a powerful reminder of the Tuatha Dé Danann's right to rule. Balor, however, was a force of unparalleled destruction. His evil eye turned the tide of battle wherever it was directed, decimating entire lines of warriors with a single glance. His presence on the battlefield was a source of terror, his immense power threatening to overwhelm the Tuatha Dé Danann's defenses. So much so that even Nuada's death came at the hands of Balor. The climax of the battle came when Lugh confronted Balor directly. The two stood as opposing forces: Balor, the embodiment of chaos and destruction, and Lugh, the harbinger of hope and renewal. As Balor's men lifted the lid of his deadly eye, Lugh acted with unmatched precision. Using his slingshot, he hurled a stone with incredible force, striking Balor directly in the eye. The blow not only destroyed the eye but also pierced through Balor's skull, killing him instantly. Balor's death shattered the Fomorian forces. Leaderless and demoralized, they began to retreat, their once unstoppable momentum broken by the fall of their greatest champion. The Tuatha Dé Danann seized the opportunity to press their advantage, driving the Fomorians from the battlefield and securing their victory. The Second Battle of Moytura marked the end of the Fomorians' dominion over Ireland. Though the Tuatha Dé Danann suffered heavy losses, their triumph was decisive. They had not only defended their sovereignty, but also ensured a future free from Fomorian oppression. Brez, captured in the aftermath, was spared in exchange for teaching the Tuatha Dé Danann the secrets of agriculture, an agreement that would benefit their society for generations to come. Lugh emerged as the hero of the battle, his leadership and bravery cementing his place in Irish mythology. The victory solidified the Tuatha Dé Danann's rule over Ireland, ushering in a period of prosperity and cultural flourishing. Yet their triumph was bittersweet, as the cost of victory was measured in the lives lost and the scars left on the land. With the death of Nuada, the leadership and governance began to change, eventually ending up with 3 kings that jointly ruled over the land. Mac Quill, associated with the sacred hazel tree, wisdom and knowledge. Mac Secht, linked to the plow or agriculture, fertility and sustenance. And Mac Grain, connected to the sun, light and life. These 3 kings ruled until their confrontation with the ancestors of the Irish people, the Milesians. After the Second Battle of Moytura, the Tuatha Dé Danann reigned as the undisputed rulers of Ireland. Their wisdom, magic, and treasures transformed the land into a place of unparalleled beauty and prosperity. But their golden age was not destined to last. From distant shores came a new wave of settlers, the Milesians, whose arrival marked the beginning of the end for the Tuatha Dé Danann's rule. The story of the Milesians begins with Miel Espine, a figure of legend whose descendants would one day claim Ireland as their own. According to tradition, the Milesians traced their lineage back to the mythical Gael Glas, a figure often associated with the origins of the Gaelic people. The Milesians' journey to Ireland was driven by prophecy and a deep sense of destiny. Their poets and seers had long foretold that their people were meant to rule a land of great power, and all signs pointed to Ireland as that land. The Milesians were a nomadic people who had wandered through many lands before setting their sights on Ireland. From Scythia to Egypt, from Spain to the edges of the known world, they carried with them the stories and traditions of their ancestors. They were warriors, poets and explorers, and their leaders Eramon, Aberfin and the poet-seer Amergin were determined to fulfill their destiny. When their fleet finally reached the shores of Ireland, the Milesians were awestruck by its beauty. Rolling green hills, mist-covered lakes, and an air of mystery seemed to welcome them. But the land was not uninhabited, and the Tuatha Dé Danann stood ready to defend it. The Tuatha Dé Danann, sensing the arrival of the Milesians, prepared to confront them. Unlike the Fir Bolg or the Fomorians, the Milesians were not perceived as monsters or oppressors, but as a formidable challenge. The Tuatha Dé Danann recognized the Milesians' strength and knew this was no ordinary group of settlers. As the Milesians landed, the Tuatha Dé Danann sent envoys to meet them. The Tuatha Dé Danann proposed a test to determine the rightful rulers of Ireland. They suggested that the Milesians return to their ships and sail 9 waves away from the shore. If they could return to Ireland despite the Tuatha Dé Danann's magic, they would be permitted to challenge for the land. Confident in their strength and guided by prophecy, the Milesians agreed. The Tuatha Dé Danann, however, had no intention of making the return easy. As the Milesian fleet sailed out to sea, the Tuatha Dé Danann unleashed a powerful storm, conjured through their magic to drive them away. The winds howled, the waves crashed, and the sky darkened, threatening to scatter the Milesian ships and end their journey. But the Milesians had a secret weapon, Amergin, their poet seer. As the storm raged, Amergin stood on the deck of the lead ship and called upon the power of the land, the sea, and the sky. His invocation, known as the Song of Amergin, is one of the most famous passages in Irish mythology. With his words, he calmed the storm, appeasing the forces of nature and allowing the Milesians to return to shore. Amergin's mastery of poetry and magic proved equal to the Tuatha Dé Danann's own, and his actions solidified the Milesians' claim to the land. Once the Milesians returned, the final confrontation could not be avoided. The Tuatha Dé Danann, despite their magic and treasures, found themselves outnumbered. The Milesians brought not only strength, but also strategy and determination, and they met the Tuatha Dé Danann in a series of fierce battles. The decisive moment came with the deaths of the three kings of the Tuatha Dé Danann, Mac Cuil, Mac Secht, and Mac Grain. Each represented a sacred aspect of Ireland, the earth, the sky, and the sun, and their fall marked the end of the Tuatha Dé Danann's sovereignty. With their defeat, the Milesians claimed victory and established themselves as the new rulers of Ireland. Despite their victory, the Milesians recognized the deep connection the Tuatha Dé Danann had with Ireland. Rather than driving them out completely, the Milesians proposed a division. The Milesians would rule the surface of the land, while the Tuatha Dé Danann would retreat to the otherworld, a realm hidden beneath the hills and lakes. From this unseen domain, the Tuatha Dé Danann would continue to exist as guardians of Ireland's spiritual essence, becoming the Aes Sedai, or People of the Mounds. The arrival of the Milesians marked the final chapter in the mythological history of Ireland's settlement. With them, mortal rule began, and the legends of Ireland's divine and otherworldly past became part of its folklore. The Milesians, as ancestors of the Gaelic people, established the traditions, language, and culture that would shape Ireland for centuries to come. And so we reach the conclusion of this part of Ireland's story, the tale of its origins, and the events that gave rise to its first ancestors, the Milesians. From the Fomorians who ruled the edges of chaos, to the Tuatha Dé Danann who brought magic and wisdom to the land, and through the thunderous battles that shaped Ireland's destiny, we've uncovered the forces that set the stage for the birth of the Irish people. This isn't the end of Ireland's mythology, not by a long shot. It's just the beginning of a rich and sprawling collection of tales that span heroes, legends, and gods, whose influence lingers in every hill and valley. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through Ireland's mythical past. If you've enjoyed this series, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the myths and legends that continue to shape the world. Stay tuned, because Ireland has so much more to reveal, and this is only the beginning of what we'll uncover together. Hey everyone, to show my appreciation for your amazing support, I'm giving away 10 prepaid credit cards worth $100 each. Think of it as a Christmas giveaway. Here's how to enter. The rules are simple. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. The giveaway is open until December 24th at 12 a.m. Eastern Time, so make sure to enter before then. I'll randomly pick 10 winners from the comments, and the winners will be announced on December 25th at the end of that week's video. If you win, I'll reply to your comment, so keep an eye out. This is just my way of saying thank you for being such an incredible community. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.